Hello everyone, how are you today? Let's unlock minds on Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development. He was a Swiss psychologist who worked in human development of cognition. So before jumping to the theory, let's first understand the central assumptions, which is constructivism, that basically says that children are active thinkers who are constantly trying to construct a more accurate or advanced understanding of the world around them. And the second assumption was that cognition develops through schema. Schema is an organized pattern of thought or action that are construct to interpret some aspects of one's experience. Child develops schema through two inborn intellectual processes, organization and adaptation. So when I say organization, it basically means rearranging the existing schemas into more organized and complex structure, and the goal of organization is to promote adaptation, which is the inborn tendency to adjust to the demand of the environment. Adaptation has two components, assimilation and accommodation. Assimilation means incorporating new information into existing schema, where schemas remain the same and the new information fits into the current interpretation of reality. As you can see in the example, the toddler's reality is that any object which is flying is a birdie. So when he saw an aeroplane, the child called that flying object a birdie because he is just fitting the new schemas into the existing schemes and not trying to modify it. Accommodation is modifying or replacing the existing mental schemas due to the exposure of new information or experience. Here, the new schemas are developed and transformed the current interpretation of reality. So because he has always seen a bird flapping its wings and with feathers, and the aeroplane doesn't have either, so there is a conflict between the existing schemas and the new scheme. So he will conclude that an aeroplane is not a bird and modify his schema accordingly. Piaget believes that assimilation and accommodation works together towards cognitive growth. They might not occur equally, but as simulation of experience that might not agree with the existing schemas, because of which cognitive conflict occurs and accommodation happens. An equilibrium occurs that is harmony between the scheme and experience. And the last stage is organization, which basically rearrange the existing scheme as into new and more complex structures. So now let's talk about his cognitive development theory, which was based on stage theory that implies all human beings move through an orderly and predictable series of changes, and came up with four main stages, first being the sensorimotor, where infants gradually discovered that they can manipulate objects and produce effects and grasp the concept of cause and effect. By 8 or 9 months of age, they will search for the hidden object and acquire a basic idea of object permanence, which is the idea that objects continue to exist even when they are hidden from view. The second stage is preoccupational stage, in which the toddler reaches 2 to 7 years of age and acquires the ability to form mental images of objects and events. At the same time, language develops to the point at which they begin to think in terms of verbal symbols. They also demonstrate symbolic play, in which they pretend that one object is another, for say a wooden block is a frog. Such play is marked by 3 shifts that afford unique insights into how children's cognitive abilities change during this period. One is decentration, in which children gradually begin to make others rather than themselves the recipients of their playful actions. For instance, they begin to feed their dolls or dress them. The second shift is decontextualization. Objects are made to substitute for each other, as when a child pretends that a twig is a spoon. The third change involves integration, combining play actions into increasingly complex sequences. They also develop egocentrism, in which young children fail to distinguish their perspective from the other. According to Piaget, a child's mastery of conservation marks the beginning of a third major stage, known as the stage of concrete operations. During this stage, they come to understand reversibility, the fact that many physical changes can be undone by a reversal of the original action. Children who have reached the stage of concrete operations also begin to engage in what Piaget described as logical thought. The last stage is formal operations. During this period, major features of adult thought make their appearance. They can think abstractly, they can deal not only with the real or concrete, but with possibilities, events, or relationships that do not exist, but can be imagined. Children become capable of hypothetico-deductive reason and interpropositional thinking.